What do you think is the most important way that you can connect with your patients effectively? We all struggle with it. When we went to dental school or medical school or nursing school or whatever kind of health care that we've gone to, they didn't teach us about human connectivity. They didn't teach us about empathy. They didn't teach us about being vulnerable. What they taught us about is how to be a good doctor, how to do procedures, how to measure pocket depth, how to take temperatures, blood pressure, bloods, how to look at all of the variables that create the human body and create health. They didn't talk about the human aspect of connecting. However, storytelling has been one of the most effective ways that we can connect with someone's emotional center. People listen to stories, they remember stories. When I give lectures, I talk about stories. Even if I'm talking about bone grafting, I'm talking about bone cells like they're actually humans growing across, bone graft materials, keeping out the soft tissue, handicapping the soft tissue, like they're golfers, with different forms of handicaps. And my students remember that. They don't remember about a blood cell and an osteoblast, and they don't remember that as well as the stories that I tell them about keeping the soft tissue out as we're growing the bone. And patients are the same way. They don't relate to pocket depth. They don't relate to pus. What they do relate to is the humanness. They do relate to you being vulnerable, you being open. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I have found is by sharing the stories of my own life, when appropriate, it really can help patients relate to me better. Let me share with you a story that happened to me that I didn't realize the importance of many years ago. I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I was riding Paul Balsano's bike, my next door neighbor. Paul Balsano had the coolest bike. It had a banana seat and had high handlebars. It was a Schwinn. And I asked him if I could borrow it, and I did. And I rode, across the street in Taft Avenue in Bridgeport. And then Tippy, his dog, jumped up on me as I was riding, and I flew over the handlebars. And my teeth broke off like dried pieces of matzah on the sidewalk, and I had two little shards of enamel sticking out from underneath the gingiva. And it happened right in front of my mom's house, and she came running across the street, and she took me to the oral surgeon, Sam Aronson, who was in downtown Bridgeport at the time, and he wired my jaw shut. So at age 8, my teeth were wired together, my jaw was wired shut, and I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat for about 6 weeks. Everything was through a straw. And it was before Cuisinarts and food processors, but something had come out called the Waring blender. And my mom I remember she put mashed potatoes and meat in there, and she ground it up, and that's how I ate for a few weeks. And that was my life. And I went through high school with, out my two front teeth, two little brown stubs. I had root canals done by Phil Levin, the only endodontist in Fairfield County. There were two endodontists in the state in 1963, Phil Levin, who was in Stanford, and Adolphe Bouchel, who was in Hartford. And so I went to see Phil, and it took weeks to finish the endo, or it seems like it took weeks in retrospect. And I went through high school without my front teeth. And when I was 18 years of age, they put crowns on them. And back then, they didn't bond teeth together. Bonding wasn't even invented yet. So I wasn't sad going through life like that. I just accepted it, because when you're 8 years old, you don't really think about being sad. You just accept it. I didn't feel like I was a victim. My mom did, of course, because it was her son that got hurt. My father, thought like, well, this kid is really prone to accidents, so we got to watch out for this kid. But for me, I just broke my teeth, and I went through school that way, and I didn't think much of it. And when I went to dental school, I had a lot of fillings done, and I went throughout my life, grinding my teeth, breaking teeth. I had a filling in almost every teeth. I don't know if I needed them or not, but the dentist that treated me back then just did extension for prevention. I had these large amalgam restorations, and then I had bruxism, and I clenched, and I had a lot of jaw pain. And when I was in my residency program, I went to the TMJ clinic every Tuesday afternoon, and I got jaw pain, because I couldn't deal with people with TMJ, because I had TMJ. And as I'm speaking about it right now, my jaw is starting to get a little bit tight. I didn't like to deal with TMJ patients because it kicked off my own TMJ issue. And when I was 46 years of age, I had broken 5 teeth within about an 18-month period. I needed 2 more endodontic procedures. And I went to my dentist at the time, Steve Rothenberg, who was a prosthodontist who's since retired. He was a phenomenal dentist. And I said, what should I do? Should I take out all my teeth and do dental implants? He goes, I don't know, because this was like 25 years ago. So we were thinking about extracting all my teeth and doing implants, because we thought implants were perfect back then. We know now that implants aren't perfect. They can have problems just like teeth can have problems. And thankfully I didn't. But what I did do was I crowned all my teeth. So today I have 23 crowns. I've lost 9 teeth. I have 3 or 4 endodontically treated teeth. And that's my story. Now here's the funny thing. That story has been in my life for over 20 years, and I never told a patient about it. For 25 years I practiced and didn't tell one patient my story. I didn't show that vulnerability. I didn't want to tell patients that I was like them, that I had dental problems too. And I don't know why I did, but one day, maybe I was 47, 48 years of age, I told a patient that story. And then the patient said, wow, you've had this problem too. Because one of the things that I've learned is that patients think that they're the worst patient we've ever seen. Patients come into our office and go, I bet you've never seen anybody this bad. And of course I have, but patients feel that they're the worst because they're individuals. And most people think that, this is how we are as human beings. We think about ourselves all the time. We think we're the only one that's gone through this. We think we're unique. We call it a sense of terminal uniqueness. But we're not. We're all very similar. And we've just gone through different situations. But we're basically, trying to do our best, trying to get through our life, having problems. Some of us deal with them better than others, but we all are dealt a deck of problems and we get them. My problem was falling over the handlebars and breaking my teeth. But that problem turned out to be something really great because I ended up devoted my life in taking care of people who have problems with their front teeth. And when I realized the importance of being able to share that with other patients, it became an asset. So one of my assets is I'm able to share part of myself. So we talk about the importance of having empathy. Now certain people are very empathetic. They'll see somebody sick or they'll hear somebody get hurt and they go, oh, like that. And they may be very, very upset by somebody else's pain and suffering. That's not true empathy. That's feeling for somebody else. But that's not what I mean by empathy. What I mean by empathy is having the ability to sit in someone else's shoes and understand why they feel what they feel. You don't have to feel what they feel, but I think it's important to understand what they feel. Because if I am in pain, every time I see a patient in pain, I would go home and I'd feel miserable every night. And I have to do this for a living. And I think some dentists are very upset about this. And a lot of people talk about dentist mental health. I know Kyle Stanley talks about that a lot. And part of the reason that a lot of dentists are stressed out is because we're in close proximity to people who are in pain that won't want to be in our office. But yet we're the reason that we can get them out of pain. So it's hard for a lot of dentists. And the physical proximity to someone in pain can be painful. That doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me to be next to somebody who's in pain. That doesn't mean I'm not empathetic. It means that I'm able to distance myself from that so I'm able to help them. But to have true empathy is to understand where a patient is coming from. So when a patient comes into my practice, I say to them, I know that you feel that you're in a lot of pain and I can understand the pain that you're going through. I empathize with them and then I share my own story. It may be that story. It may be another story. It may be a story about another patient that's very similar to them. It may be a story about somebody else that I helped. It may be a story about something that happened to me yesterday that they happened to them. Or maybe someone will come in and say, I'm really upset. I have to put my parents in hospice. I go, well, I had to put my mom in hospice. I can share that story. I don't have to go into detail. I know what you're going through. It's a difficult situation. And I mirror what they are saying to me so I can relate to them. So how do you become an effective storyteller? You practice. Maybe you talk in the mirror. Maybe you talk to your wife. Maybe you talk to your husband. Maybe you talk to your friends. Maybe you practice in Starbucks. Maybe you're in a gym and you talk to somebody. But I think the more comfortable you are sharing part of yourself through story, the better communicator you can be. Now, I don't mean to share your problems. I don't mean if you're going through a tough situation at home saying, I'm going through this at home, or I'm having a problem with my kids or my parent or whatever, or something intimate. You don't want to share those situations with patients. You want to share a story that they can relate to. Because when they can relate to you, then you can develop that connection and then they can trust you. And once they trust you, then you can give them the information they need so they can make the best decision for themselves. Stories are very powerful. Telling them facts and figures and numbers are not very powerful. Matter of fact, people just gloss over when you do that. So my suggestion to all of you, if you don't have a story, create some. I know my partners have stories that they create when they talk to their patients. My partner talks about situations he's gone through. And I think it's really, really important and powerful. But when you minimize what a patient is going through and you say, oh, I understand, that's not relating to them. That's not showing empathy. So the two key words today are be empathetic and show some vulnerability and create a story to fill that void. You're going to find that your communication with patients will explode and your relationships will be that much more intimate. When I say intimate, I mean close, where you really connect to them. And that requires us to pay attention, to be present, to look them in the eye, and to say, thank you. Thank you for trusting me. You were in the right place. I'm here to help you. Thank you for listening. And remember, be the gift.